Okay, so without further ado, I will give you the first speaker. Very very impressive talk by Ted Selker. So I can't read your handwriting, you know, so I'm just going to read what I printed. Yeah. So we actually have 5 minutes before 11. So Ted Selker. So Selker graduated with a PhD from City University of New York in '92, and his thesis was titled "A Framework for Proactive, Interactive, Adaptive Computer Help." He then moved to the IBM Almaden Research Center, where he founded and directed the User Systems Ergonomics Research Lab. He was made an IBM Fellow in '96. He developed the pointing stick known as trackpoint technology, which are this distinctive feature of the ThinkPad and laptop computers. Selker joined the MIT faculty in '99 and headed the context-aware computing group at the MIT Media Lab, and was the MIT director of the Voting Technology Project and Design Intelligence. He joined the faculty of Carnegie Mellon, Silicon Valley, right down here, in 2008 to help create its PhD program and to head the Considerate Systems group. He is regarded as a pioneer in the field of context awareness. And this is very important for mixed reality. This is a key feature. Selker's technologies have been featured on Good Morning America, ABC, the Wall Street Journal, the BBC, NPR, and SPIE also, today. In recognition of his work in voting technology, he was co-recipient of Computer Science Policy Leader Award for Scientific American in 2004, and in the American Association for People with Disabilities. Thank you. Ted?
Thank you. Good to be here. Well, this is a room full of people that have created the hardware and are working so hard for decades to make this possible revolution a reality. And people have been trying to bridge the fantasies we have in our minds with reality for millennia. However, you know, in the mid-90s, I got so discouraged that I made this helmet here to mediate communication from me riding my bike to the information world, and leaving my hands on the wheel and my eyes on the road. So how will this revolution occur? Right now, there's more than 1,000 accidents a year by people that are texting and walking. So some of these images of using lots of sensors and building these experiences are not as good as they should be yet. Even the phone, which is a much less intrusive thing than some of the things we're talking about today, has been problematic. And as we go through today, I really want to think about that issue of what are we focused on? How do we keep things peripheral? That book that was on the bottom right side is this book. A couple of my friends got together with me and we wrote a book about how to have focus and yet keep your mind aware of things that are in the periphery that do matter. And I think we'll try to come back to that a little bit. So my talk's going to proceed kind of talking about the dream and then stories. This animation here is only 5,000 years old. It was a piece of pottery that you spun, and you got that animation in Iran 5,000 years ago. Crystal balls have been around for millennia also. You somehow imagine that you're looking into this ball and see something. The ball is a physical instantiation, fairy tales included. And then in the last century, the Pygmalion Spectacles was written in 1935, where the story literally puts a pair of glasses on your head, and he tries to have some film of oil that somehow makes this romantic image of this woman, and the person, of course, falls in love in this story. Actually, films of oil have been used in actual technology too. Vannevar Bush, who brought us a lot of the agencies and the NSF, he had a wonderful paper in 1945 in Life, and he has this picture of a camera on the head, a lot like Steve Mann might wear, and he really imposes this world where we're going to be able to access all this information wherever we are, however we are. Of course, that's the internet also. But now we started building things, and you'll see I have a little bit more story about it, but there's, so many examples, and the real question is what the stories are going to be that'll really matter. So we already have augmented reality. We drive turn by turn, listening and looking at an image of the virtual world. Everywhere we are, our apps are making us aware of that location and what we can do there. I'm shopping in all stores at all times, even when I'm in a store. And that store often will even do more to make me see that the next aisle has something else. I'm learning anywhere with Google, Siri, Alexa. Everything is available to me anywhere all the time, and I can look at it too. Situated where I am, or anonymized communication has now become very confusing as we move away from voice because we're so confused about the social impact of having voice communications with somebody that's not here. And people are doing entertainment-oriented activities all the time while they're waiting for a minute or something. Pokemon Go, I was literally, and you guys probably were there too, in Bellevue, I was in a park where there was maybe 5,000 people in big groups running around this park looking for these Pokemon Go things a month or two after it had hit. Pokemon Go is fascinating in that it really did capture and captivate the public and was a really gigantic phenomenon throughout the world. Films have always been about fantasy, and they sometimes portray virtual reality as well. Starting with Metropolis, we have this image of this other person that is being created, fake and image that we can see. And of course, The Wizard of Oz is the famous one where this gigantic augmented reality, this terrifying experience for these children and these travelers. But there's hundreds of them now. And what we've made is quite impressive. Starting in the 1800s, we have the various kinds of approaches for 3D stereo, from anaglyphs all the way from the 1856. But we also had the Link trainer in 1929 made a lot of money. So this was a real immersive experience with motion and imagery that saved a lot of lives because people weren't actually going into airplanes without having some training. By 1945, we have a patent on putting CRTs on your eyes. Believe it or not, I mean, the CRT was only about 5 years old at that point. And then Morton Hellig really dove in, and he tried to make it about entertainment. So some companies are thinking about entertainment, and there's other things. Of course, entertainment wasn't ready for him, even though he made actual devices that people could pay to use. Here's him with his CRTs on his eyes in about 1961, I think, maybe even earlier. And then Philco in 61 made this helmet, which allowed you to be somewhere else. Let's say you're inside of a big nuclear reactor and you're driving a camera around with a robot. You could do it with head-mounted recognition of where you were. So we've got entertainment, we've got being somewhere else, and then Ivan Sutherland gets a lot of credit in 1969 for saying, hey, we can do engineering with such things too. Unclear his thing always already worked as a complete unit at any particular time, but actually we have other examples of people really trying. Here's somebody in 1965 actually playing football with a camera on their head. Lots of experience already. And in the 1980s, there was this Warren Robinette paid Jaron Lanier and Tom Zimmerman to build these beautiful outfits that had these lovely bend sensors and also the head-mounted display and these gloves. And they were gigantically expensive, low resolution, and had lag. And they were, you try to do things with them, and it was more about you getting the chance to do it than the party was there. But in the 1990s, lots of people tried to commercialize things. And what I think is even more interesting than the Virtual I/O, Cybernaut, VIO, Microvision, all these people were building things, was that there were some people starting to live with it. And I don't think anybody has spent more time using a head-mounted display than Thad. Thad Starner, Brad Rhodes, Steve Mann, Rich Duvall at MIT. They were a little cluster of people. And at the time, it didn't seem that unusual to me. Now it seems unbelievably unusual that they would walk around with it all the time and use it. And I think Brad really, in my mind, was a high watermark with his remembrance agent, being able to, I worked with these students a lot, being able to recall the context of a conversation at any point with his cute little AI system. But now there's so many companies, and it's really exciting time. You recognize most of these things. The ones that I kind of find interesting and harken back to my helmet are this Bose thing that actually does not have a image that it's creating, but guides you with audio. And quite effective and useful feeling device in spite of that. And so, even all the way to, open source attempts, quite an impressive looking thing there. And we are seeing better and better things. In fact, we are living in the future. They are giving us outside awareness. They have, a great viewing box with, 50 degrees is not unusual. People claim 120. I don't know if that really is real. The Jaggies are a thing of the past. As an old graphics guy, I'm just shocked. Full color, beautiful, vibrant, exciting, bright. The things are stable, and I mean, I did not expect the pixel stick that you might experience when you play with that Magic Leap later on today, where it will put a label on something and you put some dominoes on a table and they just stay. And some of them even have multi-focus light fields, which is we'll see how important that is. A lot of people have portrayed that as super duper. And the sensing, oh my gosh. I mean, the cell phones have sensors that you couldn't buy for hundreds of thousands of dollars 15 years ago. And these headsets are just pushing it out. They're doing everything they can to best cell phones. And, no lag and good meshing and lots of great stuff. So all of this great hardware, great audio. Oh my gosh, you've got it. You mean the audio people are working overtime on these things too. And so why are we going to have those? We have all of these possibilities, and people have been doing weird things to buildings. If you look up at digital obscura's images up at the top of this screen, they've been painting buildings. And I'm sorry that I'm going to include these kinds of projecting things in such a talk, but I really believe that the whole augmentation of reality we have lots of alternatives. And so, the virtual reality is when I create an entire immersive experience, and augmented is when I annotate it, and mixed reality is when I actually add things into the world that appear to be in the world, like we have with Kiichi Matsuda's videos. And if any of you have not seen them yet, they're just, they're dystopian, but they give this image of here you are in an aisle where everything's annotated, and when in his story the stuff falls away, the person's lost. But the goal is to help us with, not just escapism to get me out of here, but what can I do? And who are you? Finding out about the other person, and where am I, and what is this? And to give me a nudge and to judge me maybe a little bit, not too much. People aren't very good at being judged poorly. And a hug if I need it, which is almost always. So we have so much compelling imagery, and the question is whether it's just the profound and fantastic and dramatic imagery that's going to carry this industry. I actually don't think so. I think it's much more about the functional things that we do. So in my helmet, for example, I would shake my head to say, I'm going to talk about that pothole I just went over because it made my head shake. I would scream, and it would make a horn go off that would cover up my obscenity so that the person that I was screaming at only heard a horn. I would tip my head to make blinkers go on. I would talk, and it would go to the telephone. I would, if there was a loud noise outside, it would turn off my MP3, and I'd ride. I rode this for half a decade on my commute. It was fantastic. And the question is, what are we going to do that's going to make these fantastic experiences? The first time I saw a fantastic experience, I really did, I don't know why I didn't think of Link, that's a fantastic experience, was in 1989 at the VA. And what was impressive to me was back then when there was all that lag, this paratrooper with just 2 inputs, 2 strings that they pulled on, had such a superb experience. Looking down at that building, they were gonna land their parachute on, that they learned to have 1/10 the crashes that the people that didn't have that experience had. Just hang this guy 2 inches off the ground, put on the VR glasses, and give them those things. Why does it work great? Well, lag is fundamental to a parachute anyway. Low resolution from half a mile up when you're shooting for a building, no problem. On the right, we have this guy in a wheelchair the same year. What do you have there? You have 2 mouse wheels, rollers, right? That's all you need. And he's experiencing, the guy's had is a paraplegic, somehow he had an accident, and he's experiencing his apartment before he goes home. Extremely productive. VA hospital used it for a lot. It didn't get a lot of note by the academic community because it was made with off-the-shelf hardware, and it was made by practitioners, not by academics. But these were 2, to me, watershed demonstrations. We started off with the Cutlass Supreme in 1988, having a heads-up display. No one cared. Why? What does it really help to have your speed projected on the screen? Maybe they thought it would, but it didn't seem to. Of course, the heads-up displays on military vehicles and on airplanes, I'm told, I have not been shown, but I've been told, are amazing. And I've seen videos where, all the places you shouldn't fly your airplane look like dark clouds and you're going down a corridor of blue beautifulness. And I guess I've spent a lot of time exploring the idea of putting up road signs as you're driving a car. I think the navigation stories are not over and are not as good as they will become. But I also think that it's kind of fun to think of what kinds of things don't change a person's behavior but improve it. So here I am wearing a helmet with my bicycle or welding. And in welding, it's just the most incredibly weird thing. You can't actually see what you're doing, right? So why wouldn't it be great to see how deep I'm penetrating with that weld? Why wouldn't it be great to see how big that puddle is, where the rest of that material is as I'm welding? And instead of a black field with a bright spark, which is what we see today as welders. And you might think, oh, it's niche. It's only 1 million people welding right now in this country. So what do we say? What do we express with our activity that the system could understand? In 1967, this guy used eye trackers just to watch what people did with their eyes when they were asked one of these 7 questions. And you can see the eye tracking shows that what they were thinking is quite different, right? They're looking for the ages of people. It's kind of, you can see them just going 1, 2, 3 through all the people. Very, very interesting that we can say that much with very simple just eye motion. And also, what else can we recognize? I did a study a couple of years ago where we took 13 different biometrics to see if we could tell when a person was going to crash a car. And we found that within just a few seconds, just variation in eye dilation, pupil dilation, I could tell that I could tell well enough to turn off something a little extra stressful, reduce it, and stop them from making the mistake. This is in a simulator. But it's exciting that you can actually proactively avoid them having a car crash by recognizing their affective state reliably with a very simple, this is just a webcam. This wasn't even a fancy camera. This was nothing, 30th of a second. And there's lots of opportunity for us recognizing important things that are going to make people's lives better. So what it's going to take these things from being demonstrations to going into the mainstream. Certainly, the first-person view that Philips gave, it's totally used for drones already. Entertainment, I think Sony sold a lot of heads-up displays last year. Design support, yes, there's demonstrations, and some people say that the auto industry is actually succeeding at improving their workflow. Overlaid detail, archaeology, building infrastructure, equipment, Steve Feiner's been writing papers about that for decades. I don't know how widespread that's going to be. But task, aid, and logistics, when you go out onto the floor at any of these AR conferences, those guys are making money. They are actually selling them, and it's being used. The point is to give people competence while they're doing stuff. Learning, it's people have been expecting education to be a big thing, and there's a nice thesis by Scott Greenwood at MIT where he showed places where it actually improved learning. zSpace has a lot of offerings. Memory aid, context-aware navigation, and shared experiences. Here we have another one of Keiichi's images, listing the things that I have to be aware of or can be aware of right now, and painting the whole world to make it somehow more useful, possibly. But it's hard to say. I mean, I don't know about that Keiichi image in that we have, television shows that portray people playing in a convenience store with guns and having these otherworldly experiences. I don't know if that's going to work. We really have to be aware of where we are and what we're doing. What is reasonable for us to do when we're not in an office? Now our computers are used almost exclusively while we're walking, talking outside with other people. That is not what computers were before. That is why the egocentric computer has to go away. We have to respect the social context. We have to respect the physical space. And we have to understand that as we're doing this, we are 6 times more likely to have a car accident when we're driving while texting than when we're drunk. So I'm just going to play this little video, maybe. And so here's just, you probably have all seen these things where people are trying to use their devices, and it's just kind of ridiculous. So, yeah, that's it just keeps happening, and you've probably seen it. You probably had it happen to yourself. And so here she is trying to drive a car, and oops, that's not so good. So, so I don't want that to happen to us, and I don't want us to be making those kinds of things. I want us to be making things that are going to make a better world, and will make all of us be able to want to be part of this AR and mixed reality revolution. And until we have these apps that take us out into the world and productively make our lives better, even if it's for games, we're going to continue, as we have for the last 40 years, to make beautiful hardware that people won't appreciate. So thank you very much.